President Obama arrived in Cuba March 20th, the first visit by a U.S. leader since Calvin Coolidge in 1928. Last spring, I spoke to Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology researcher Eduardo Inigo Elias about what improved relations between the U.S. and Cuba could mean for science.
For the last 12 years, the Lab of Ornithology have been involved in research and conservation and training, building local capacity with biologists and scientists from Cuba. So you can imagine the amount of work that we have on the back from our lawyers from Cornell University to get the permits to work through the Treasury Department and the State Department here in the U.S., but also has been a lot of paperwork to do, the things that we want to do collaborated with Cuban scientists. And our Cuban scientists have to deal also with their restrictions that they have.
Lost in the coverage of the so-called ClimateGate email controversy is a key point about the IPCC's track record of climate change estimates. James McCarthy is on the faculty of the Harvard Medical School Center for Health and the Global Environment. He spoke February 21st at the annual meeting of the American Association for the Advancement of Science in San Diego.
If you were to go back and map the IPCC projections for sea level rise and temperature in 1990, look at it in 1995, look at it in 2000, in retrospect, you would find that they were conservative. So when we talk about errors, you're going to do two ledgers. Here are IPCC overestimates, here are IPCC underestimates over the 20 or so years that these assessments have been running. The underestimate ledger would be much larger than the overestimate, even with glitches, clearly erroneous editing or sloppy editing led to these erroneous statements that they got us in trouble recently.
We all know that elephants aren't really scared of mice, but a new study shows that they're really not crazy about something even smaller, ants. In fact, elephants dislike ants so much that they avoid acacia trees that harbor the tiny six-legged nectar suckers. On the savanna, acacia trees growing in regions that get a lot of elephant traffic tend to get eaten. But researchers noticed that one species of acacia was not much bothered by elephants, and that the untouched acacia was a favorite ant habitat. So the scientists stripped the ant-covered acacia of their bodyguard bugs, and sure enough, the elephants chowed down. In addition, when the insects were placed on previously ant-free acacias, the elephants took a pass. But how can teeny tiny ants repel a big old elephant, which is after all about 1 billion times more massive? The answer is in the trunk. Or rather not in the trunk, because as you can probably relate, elephants really hate to have ants up their noses. The research is published in the journal Current Biology, and it suggests that adding ants could help preserve wooded areas on the savanna, because ants will ruin any picnic, even for pachyderms.
Music, film, and video game makers face a new online digital world, and some are testing a revolutionary pricing system, pay what you want. But a new study finds that when consumers can name their own price, many opt out of buying at all. The study is in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. For the research, tour boat passengers posed for photos. Each boat ride announced a price of $15 per picture, but they then charged either $15, $5, or the option to pay what you want. As expected, the fewest tourists purchased photos when they had to pay full price, but more customers bought photos when they cost $5 than when prices were pay what you want, which could have saved passengers even more. The researchers suggest that choosing to pay less than an announced, lower than expected price made people feel cheap. With choices then limited to spending more money or feeling like a tightwad, potential customers simply opted out of the purchase. So on sea or land, a low set price may catch the most fish.
Crop rotation is a recognized way to keep soil and the food ecosystem healthy. Now scientists are saying that rotation could be a useful tool in the sea. Researchers tracked a shallow water, nearshore species used for food, sea cucumbers. They're easy to harvest and are fairly valuable, but those same attributes mean they're easy to overharvest. The practice has put some sea cucumber species at high risk of extinction, even in a relatively well-managed area, the Great Barrier Marine Park in Australia. In 2004, authorities split the Great Barrier Reef into 154 zones, where each zone was fished only once every 3 years. Fishers rotate through the region. In computer models, the researchers ran through dozens of simulations of each zone, both before and after the divisions took place. The trials revealed that even with an identical and low catch allowance in all cases, the sea cucumbers would recover more fully under the rotation strategy than by harvesting simultaneously throughout the region. In fact, in trials that included rotations, the yield actually increased. The research is in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences.